The wedding invitation had been beautiful, thick cream cardstock with gold lettering announcing the marriage of my younger brother Marcus to his fiancée Victoria. What wasn't beautiful was the follow-up phone call I received 2 weeks before the ceremony. "Emma, we need to discuss the seating arrangements," my mother said, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was about to deliver unwelcome news diplomatically. I was in my home office, reviewing quarterly reports from the 3 nonprofits I quietly funded through my foundation. At 31, I'd built a successful consulting firm that specialized in political strategy and campaign management, but I kept my client list confidential and my lifestyle modest. My family knew I did something with computers and politics, but they'd never bothered to ask for details. "What about the seating?" I asked, minimizing the document showing my latest $50,000 donation to the Children's Literacy Program. "Well, Victoria's family has some very important connections. Her father works with several state legislators, and there will be some significant political figures attending." I waited for the actual point. "So we've arranged the main reception hall by importance levels. You understand?" "I'm not sure I do." Mom sighed. "The head table, of course, is for family. Then the first few tables are for Victoria's father's political contacts and business associates. Very influential people. Then family friends, college friends, and..." She paused. "And? Well, we put you at table 12. Near the service station. It's still a lovely spot and you'll be with some of the catering staff who are very nice people." I stared at my computer screen where a photo of Senator Patricia Caldwell smiled back at me from a news article about education funding I'd helped secure through carefully orchestrated lobbying efforts. "You're seating me with the catering staff. It's not that we don't value you, sweetheart. It's just that Marcus and Victoria want to make the right impression. You know how these things work in politics." I did know how these things worked in politics. Better than anyone in my family realized. "I see. You're not upset, are you? I mean, you've always been more comfortable in the background anyway." That was true. I'd always preferred working behind the scenes, crafting strategies and building coalitions while other people took the spotlight. It's why my consulting firm operated under a discreet corporate name rather than my own, and why my political donations went through a foundation that kept my identity private. "No, Mom. I'm not upset." "Wonderful." "Oh, and Emma?" Victoria asked if you could maybe tone down the political talk. Some of the guests might not appreciate too many opinions from someone who isn't really in the industry. "Of course. You're such a good sport. Marcus is so lucky to have a sister who understands." After hanging up, I sat in my office for a long time, looking at the wall of framed photos showing me with various political figures at private strategy sessions and fundraising events. None of those photos would mean anything to my family. They only recognized politicians from television news. I called my assistant Jennifer. "Jen, I need you to RSVP yes for the Caldwell event on the 15th. Senator Caldwell's campaign celebration? I thought you said you couldn't attend because of your brother's wedding." "Change of plans. I'll be at both events." "Should I arrange for the foundation's usual donation presentation?" "No," I said, a plan beginning to form. "This time I think we'll keep it simple. Build up. The day of reckoning." The morning of Marcus's wedding, I arrived at the venue early to help with last-minute preparations. The country club was beautiful, decorated in white and gold with enough flowers to stock a small florist shop. Victoria's father had spared no expense, which made sense given that he was trying to impress some of the state's most powerful political players. "Emma." Victoria rushed over, looking radiant in her silk robe with her hair in curlers. "Thank you so much for coming early to help." "Of course. What do you need?" "Could you handle the gift table? We're expecting some very important people today and we want everything to look perfect." I spent the morning arranging presents and greeting early arrivals. By noon, the guest list read like a who's who of state politics. I recognized several legislators, a few federal court judges, and at least 2 congressmen. It was an impressive turnout for a local attorney's son's wedding. Marcus found me arranging flowers near the service entrance. "The main hall is for important guests," he said, straightening his bow tie with obvious pride. Victoria's dad really came through with the guest list. This could be huge for my career. Marcus had recently started working at a mid-level law firm that specialized in municipal contracts. He'd been hoping to break into political law for years, but he lacked the connections and experience that mattered in state politics. "It's a beautiful wedding," I said diplomatically. "Did you see who's here? Senator Caldwell actually came. And Congressman Martinez. Victoria's father must have called in some serious favors." I had seen Senator Caldwell arrive. She'd given me a subtle nod of recognition when our eyes met across the room, but she'd respected my obvious desire for discretion by not approaching me. "Very impressive," I agreed. "I mean, I know it's awkward that you're sitting in the back," Marcus continued, "but honestly, it would be weird to have you at a political table when you don't really know anything about that world." I stayed gracious. "Right. Thanks for being cool about it." The ceremony itself was lovely. I watched from my assigned seat in the last row as Marcus and Victoria exchanged vows, surrounded by their families and what Marcus kept calling very important people. During the reception lineup, I hung back while my parents proudly introduced Marcus to various political figures. "This is our son Marcus," Mom was saying to a state delegate. "He's a lawyer very interested in public service." No one introduced me to anyone. Dinner was served promptly at 6. I made my way to table 12, which was indeed next to the service station. My tablemates included 2 servers, the florist and Victoria's elderly great-aunt who had apparently also been deemed insufficiently important for the main reception area. "Lovely ceremony," said Janet, one of the servers, as she adjusted her uniform between courses. "Beautiful," I agreed, watching Marcus work the room like a seasoned politician. He was clearly in his element, shaking hands and collecting business cards while Victoria beamed beside him. Around 7:30, I noticed a commotion near the main entrance. Senator Caldwell was speaking urgently with Victoria's father, who looked increasingly flustered. "Is everything all right?" I asked Janet when she returned from clearing the main tables. "Some kind of mix-up," she whispered. "The senator is looking for someone, but they can't figure out who she means." I had a feeling I knew who she meant. "What's she saying?" "Something about wanting to personally thank her chief campaign donor for the Children's Education Initiative. Apparently, this person donated enough to make the whole program possible, but no one knows who she's talking about." I glanced toward the main tables where Marcus was still networking enthusiastically, unaware that his carefully orchestrated political debut was about to take an unexpected turn. My phone buzzed with a text from Senator Caldwell. "Emma, I know you prefer to stay private, but I really need to acknowledge your foundation's contribution publicly tonight. Too many people here who need to know education has real supporters." I looked around the reception, at my family who'd relegated me to the service table, at the political figures who didn't know I'd helped fund their favorite programs, at Marcus who was desperately trying to make connections in a world where I already had influence. I typed back, "Table 12 near the service station." Senator Caldwell's response came immediately, "Absolutely not. Give me 2 minutes." When the senator requested her chief donor, Senator Caldwell approached the microphone that the DJ had been using to announce the evening's events. The reception noise gradually died down as people realized someone was about to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment." The room fell silent. Marcus beamed from his position at the head table, clearly assuming this was some kind of political blessing for his wedding. "I want to thank the Morrison family for hosting such a beautiful celebration, and for giving me the opportunity to address something that's been weighing on my mind." Victoria's father stood up, looking pleased but confused. 3 months ago, my office launched the most ambitious children's literacy initiative in our state's history. We've been able to establish reading programs in over 200 underserved schools, provide free books to families, and train hundreds of volunteer tutors. Polite applause rippled through the room. "What many people don't know," Senator Caldwell continued, "is that this program exists because of one person's extraordinary generosity. Someone in this very room donated $500,000 through their private foundation to make this dream a reality." The applause grew more enthusiastic. I saw Marcus sit up straighter, perhaps wondering if one of his new political contacts was about to be recognized. "I've been trying to thank this person publicly for months, but they've consistently declined recognition. However, I believe there are times when modesty must give way to the importance of inspiring others to similar generosity." The wedding playlist stopped. Senator Caldwell's eyes found mine across the crowded room. "Emma Morrison, could you please come forward?" The silence that followed was absolute, Every head in the room turned toward table 12, where I sat in my simple navy dress next to the catering staff. I could see the confusion on people's faces as they tried to process what they'd just heard. I stood slowly and began walking toward the front of the room. The clicking of my heels on the polished floor was the only sound in the entire reception hall. Emma Morrison, Senator Caldwell continued as I approached, is the founder of the Morrison Foundation for Educational Excellence. Her generous donation didn't just fund our literacy program, it demonstrated the kind of private-public partnership that actually changes lives. I reached the microphone area, and Senator Caldwell shook my hand warmly before addressing the room again. Emma has been advising my office on education policy for 2 years. She's one of the most effective political strategists I've had the pleasure of working with, and her commitment to children's education is unmatched. I looked out at the sea of faces staring back at me. Marcus looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Mom's mouth was hanging open. Victoria's father was frantically checking his phone, probably Googling my name. "Thank you, Senator," I said quietly into the microphone. "I appreciate the recognition, but the real heroes are the teachers and volunteers implementing these programs." "Before you deflect credit entirely," Senator Caldwell said with a smile, "I should mention that Congressman Martinez wanted me to pass along his gratitude as well. Your foundation's support for his rural broadband initiative has been instrumental in connecting underserved communities." Congressman Martinez stood and raised his glass. "To Emma Morrison, a true champion of public service." The room erupted in applause, genuine, enthusiastic applause from people who understood exactly what $500,000 in political donations represented. I looked toward table 12, where Janet the server was clapping enthusiastically and grinning at me. Then I looked toward the head table where my family sat in stunned silence. Marcus had gone pale. Mom looked like she was trying to solve a complex math problem. Dad was staring at me as if I'd suddenly started speaking a foreign language. "Emma," Senator Caldwell said quietly as the applause died down, "I hope you'll consider joining our education committee officially. We could use someone with your expertise and resources in a more formal capacity." "I'd be honored," I replied. As I walked back toward my table, people began approaching me, legislators wanting to discuss policy, business leaders interested in the foundation's work, political operatives asking for my card. The networking reception Marcus had hoped to have was happening, but with me at the center instead of him. I didn't return to table 12. Instead, I found myself surrounded by conversations about education funding, policy implementation, and strategic planning. Real political conversations with people who actually made decisions. Resolution. New respect, new boundaries. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of meaningful conversations and genuine political networking. By the time the reception ended, I had 3 meeting requests for the following week and a formal invitation to speak at the State Education Summit. Marcus finally approached me as I was gathering my things. "Emma," he said quietly, "I had no idea." "I know. Why didn't you ever tell us about all this?" I looked at my younger brother who'd spent the evening trying to rebuild his confidence after watching his unknown sister command the respect of every important person in the room. "You never asked," I said simply. "In all the years I've been doing this work, no one in our family ever asked what I actually did or why I was able to live so comfortably without a traditional job. But you always seemed so quiet, unambitious, content to stay in the background." Marcus nodded miserably. "I am content to stay in the background," I said. "That's how real political work gets done. But there's a difference between choosing to be private and being dismissed as unimportant." Mom and Dad joined us, both looking shell-shocked. "Sweetheart," Mom said, "we're so sorry. We had no idea you were so accomplished. The foundation work, the political connections," Dad added. "Why did you keep it all secret?" "I didn't keep it secret," I corrected. "I kept it private. There's a difference. You could have asked about my work any time in the past 5 years. You chose to assume it wasn't worth discussing." Victoria appeared, still in her wedding dress but looking significantly less radiant than she had that morning. "Emma, I owe you an enormous apology," she said. "If I'd known who you were, of course you would have been at the head table." "If you'd known who I was," I repeated. "But you didn't bother to find out before deciding I belonged with the catering staff." The truth hung between us. They were apologizing not because they'd treated me poorly, but because they'd discovered I was important enough to treat better. What happens now? Marcus asked. Now you enjoy your honeymoon, I said. And when you get back, maybe we can have a real conversation about what we all do for work. I hugged them goodbye, genuinely, because they were still my family despite everything. But I also made a mental note to reevaluate how much effort I put into maintaining relationships with people who only valued me after discovering my net worth. The next week, I received a formal apology from Victoria's father, along with an invitation to join the board of his political action committee. I politely declined the board position but accepted his invitation to lunch. It was a good meeting. He was genuinely interested in education policy, not just trying to network with a major donor. Marcus called the following month. I've been thinking, he said, about what you said at the wedding. What about it? You're right. I never asked about your work because I assumed it wasn't as important as what I was doing. That was incredibly arrogant. Yes, it was. Could we maybe start over? I'd really like to understand what you do. I smiled. I'd like that too. We met for coffee the following week. For the first time in years, Marcus asked genuine questions about my work instead of talking about his own career plans. He listened when I explained the Foundation's mission and the complexity of political strategy work. He even offered some insights from his municipal law experience that were actually useful. It was a good conversation, the kind we should have been having all along. I kept my seating assignment from the wedding as a reminder. Table 12, next to the service station, where I'd sat among people who treated me with respect regardless of my bank account. Sometimes the best view is from the back of the room anyway.